My sister named her baby after my dead wife. Written by Sleepless in Theno. When I found out my sister was pregnant, I was happy for her. 8 months later, when she named the thing Mary, I was ready to kill her. Mary was the name of my late wife. She went missing 7 years ago. Emma, my sister, said she did it in her honor, like that somehow changed things. I hid my malice in the beginning, but my family could tell I wanted nothing to do with Emma or her child. The baby was born with a full head of hair, that soft, silky brown hair I knew so well. Its eyes were a brilliant hazel. It never cried, not even when it was born. It had the cutest little giggle, or so I heard. I didn't visit. Emma felt blessed to have such a beautiful, well-mannered child, but I only felt dread. It was the spitting image of my wife. It haunted me. Don't get me wrong, I loved my wife. Mary was the closest thing to an angel on earth. She was warm, funny, and drop-dead gorgeous. Her voice was melodic, and her laughter was contagious. When she hugged you, you felt like you were sinking into the softest mattress with the warmest blankets. Her kisses were tender and would ignite a kind of excitement in you, like you were getting your first crush all over again. She could ease your pain just by looking at you. Everyone loved her, and when she chose me, I felt like the luckiest man in the world. I never deserved her. Its first word was hammer. That was its favorite toy. Emma had bought the thing a little toolbox so it could pretend to work with its father. Of everything, it chose the hammer. It would play in the garage for hours, running around and hitting things while yelling, "Bang!" My family thought it was adorable. They pressed me to visit, hoping that if I spent some time with the thing, I'd warm up to it. Emma spearheaded these efforts, as she had become quite distraught at the thought that her child would never get to know its uncle. Finally, I caved. I had never seen the baby in person, so I decided that might be the cure to my disdain for it. I agreed to spend the vacation over at her house. I'd stay in the guest room and take the toddler out to the park, drive it to the daycare, get ice cream with it, etc. Emma's husband was away on a business trip, so it'd take some responsibility off her shoulders. When I arrived, Emma opened the door and immediately greeted me with a hug. I tried to pull away, not being one for physical affection, but she had a firm grip on me. I didn't even notice it trailing behind her, clinging onto her legs, but it had noticed me. Mary was a free spirit. The thickest rope couldn't tie her down. I would become frustrated with her absences, her late nights, her blatant flirting with other men, but immediately forget why I was angry the second she'd cuddle up next to me or kiss me on the forehead. Mary had a way of making people forgive her. That was how the affair was able to go on for so long. The child began wailing at the sight of me. The sound pierced my ears. I yelled at Emma, begging her to shut the thing up. I don't know if she heard me. Her motherly instincts had already kicked in, and her attention was honed in on the child she was shushing in her arms. If she did, she didn't say anything. The child quieted down to a whimper. Emma desperately apologized to me, explaining that it had never cried like that before. It must have been upset by meeting someone new. It was tired, it was hungry, and so on. I could tell she was worried I would leave, so, against all better judgment, I stayed. After that initial fiasco, the child seemed to adjust to my presence quite well. Too well. It became clingy, followed me around for the rest of the day. It would wait outside when I went to the bathroom, watch me from across the room when I had conversations with Emma, and pop out from behind corners to try and startle me, giggling hideously every time. Every time I'd get close to my breaking point, Emma would find some excuse for me to stay. Eventually it came time to take it to the park. I figured I could just drop it off, drive around in my car while I played with the other children, and pick it up when it was time to go home. I had no interest in supervising it. Everything went to plan at first. I dropped it off, went back to my car, and was about to drive away when I saw something odd. The child hadn't gone up to the other kids. It hadn't even gone to the playground. It was kneeled over, digging in the dirt under a tree. My heart skipped a beat. I threw my car in reverse and sped off. Fuck! 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 My hands were shaking. My head was spinning, and I could barely tell what was going on around me. By some miracle, I was able to pull over on the side of the road, get out of my car, and vomit. Somehow, that thing knew. I was aware that Mary had been cheating on me for a long time, but I never said anything. I wanted to, sure, but every time I was about to protest, she'd throw herself on me and tell me how special I was to her, how she loved me more than anything in the world. So what if she was fucking some other guy? That was just a fling, some physical desire any stranger could satisfy. Her love was reserved for me, and that was all that mattered. Emma called me 2 hours later. She was worried. She wanted to know where we were, if everything was okay. I had calmed down by this point and was able to feign happiness. I said that I was having so much fun playing with the kid that I'd completely lost track of time. I assured her we'd be home soon. The call ended and my heart sank. I knew I had to go back to the park. I was sweating the entire drive back. If something happened to that child, I'd be in trouble. When I pulled up to the park, I noticed it immediately. The child was still under the tree, just standing there, staring at me. It was holding a hammer in its hand, an old, rusty hammer. It looked me straight in the eyes as I cautiously approached it. Without a word, I snatched the hammer from its grasp and scooped the thing up. I raced back to the car, hurriedly strapped the child into the back seat, and shoved the hammer into my bag. Even after all those years, the handle still had the same grooves from where my hand had worn it down. Mary came home at 2 a.m. That in itself wasn't unusual, but her attitude was. I inquired about her night, but rather than apologizing and showering me in love as per usual, Mary ignored me. That pissed me off. I started shouting at her. She didn't react. I called her names. She put headphones in. I went to grab her arm. She pulled away. I shoved her. She ran into the bedroom and locked the door. I slept on the couch that night. When I woke up, she was gone. I didn't even hear her leave. I went to use the bathroom when a glint of light in the trash can caught my eye. It was her wedding ring. Emma came racing out when I pulled into the garage. Her face was beaming. Not wanting to give myself up, I played along. I unbuckled the kid and helped it out of the car. We ate dinner together and watched TV. Every minute was painful, but if it meant Emma wouldn't be suspicious, it was worth it. I tucked the child into bed that night. I went to give it a kiss on the forehead when it smiled at me. Not just any smile, Mary's smile. I ran out of the room and holed up in the guest bedroom until I calmed down. I got ready for bed and tried to relax. I couldn't sleep. My thoughts were racing and my mind was scattered. I got out of bed to use the restroom, and when I returned, Mary was waiting for me. The moonlight struck her face. She was just as beautiful as I remembered her. She looked so peaceful, so content, so alive, just as she had the night I came home from work, the day I had found her wedding ring in the trash can. My hand tightened around the handle of the hammer. I didn't want to do it again, but I didn't have any choice. After I finished, I drove back to my house. Our house. I walked around to the back of the garage and dug. It shouldn't have taken long. The grave was supposed to be shallow. I dug until the sun began to peek out over the horizon. I still hadn't found Mary. She wasn't there. I decided to go back. Emma's house was dark. I made my way to the guest bedroom. The bed was neatly made, untouched. I went to check the child's bedroom next. I opened the door and found myself in an office. No toys, no crib, no Mary. Emma insists she never had a child. My family thinks I ought to check myself into a hospital, but I know that it won't matter. I've checked into hotels, stayed with friends, and it still follows me. I can hear her laughing at me, teasing me. She keeps asking me to come to bed, and tonight, I think I will.